You know, sometimes life throws something at you that shakes you, not because it's loud or dramatic, but because it hits a part of you that you didn't even realize had gone quiet. I've spent decades working on films, training for roles, traveling across continents, meeting people who have lived 1,000 different lives. I've seen beauty, and I've seen the kind of darkness that makes you wonder how we're all still walking around pretending everything's fine. But 3 weeks ago, somewhere along a lonely stretch of highway in Wyoming, something happened that I just can't let go of. It wasn't explosive, it wasn't cinematic, it was quiet, painfully quiet, and maybe that's why it cut so deep. I'd been driving down from Montana after visiting some friends, enjoying the calm before the winter really decided to show its teeth. The kind of drive where the world feels big and you feel small in a good way. But the weather turned fast. You know how it gets out there: wide open land, endless sky, and storms that can build themselves out of nothing. By early afternoon, clouds rolled in thick and heavy. The temperature dropped like someone pulled a lever, and before I knew it, snow was coming down hard enough to erase the horizon. I've driven through a lot in my life. Rainstorms, sandstorms, icy mountain passes, but this storm felt like it was trying to swallow the whole world. Visibility was maybe 10 feet, wind pushing the truck around like it was made of cardboard. That kind of storm where you lean forward over the wheel, even though you know it won't help. There wasn't another car in sight. Just me, the storm, and the kind of silence that feels like a weight in your chest. I kept pushing ahead, slow and steady, trying not to slip off into a ditch where no one would find me until spring thaw. It had been maybe 40 minutes of white, knuckling the steering wheel when something flickered at the edge of my vision. Just a small movement, almost nothing, but it was enough to make me slow down. At first, I thought it might be a deer, or maybe just my eyes playing tricks in the storm, but then I saw it, a shape. Low to the ground, still, too still. I pulled over, which was risky, because pulling over in a storm like that means committing to the idea that you might not get moving again. I threw on the hazards and stepped out into the cold. And Jesus, that cold hit like a punch, needle, sharp wind, snow whipping sideways, biting through the layers like they were nothing. But I kept moving. Something inside me was already pulling me forward before my brain had even caught up. As I got closer, I realized it was a dog, a big one, standing in the snow with this kind of quiet desperation around her. Not barking, not moving much, just shaking, and not the normal shaking you see when an animal is cold. This was tremoring. Fear, exhaustion, cold, all tangled together. And then I saw the rope. Thick, frozen stiff, tied tight around her neck and looped around a rusted metal post, like someone had anchored her there on purpose. I don't know what it is about moments like that, when you see something wrong, something cruel, but there's this spark inside you, a sharp, heavy spark that feels like anger and heartbreak at the same time. I walked slowly, talking softly, letting her see that I wasn't going to hurt her. She looked at me with these eyes. God, I don't think I'll ever forget them. There was fear, sure, but also this tiny flicker of hope. Like she was still giving humanity one last chance to not disappoint her. I reached out, let her smell my hand. She pressed her head into my palm like she'd been holding herself together for hours, and finally let go in that one small moment of contact. I checked the knot. It was frozen solid. Whoever tied her there didn't do it gently. They cinched it tight, tight enough to dig into her fur, tight enough that it must have hurt. I told her I'd be right back, even though I knew she didn't understand the words. But she understood the intention. She watched me the whole way as I pushed back through the snow toward the truck. That's when I saw the box, just a soggy, half-collapsed cardboard box 10 feet away, nearly buried under drifting snow. I don't know why I walked toward it, maybe curiosity, maybe instinct, but when I looked inside, something inside me cracked. 2 puppies, tiny, 6, maybe 8 weeks old, huddled together, barely moving. Snow had blown into the box and soaked everything, chilling them straight to the bone. Their little bodies were shivering so weakly it barely counted as movement. I don't know how long they'd been there, but it was long enough to see what was coming if I didn't do something right then. And suddenly everything made sense. The mother wasn't just abandoned. She'd been tied up so she couldn't follow whoever dropped them off, and the puppies placed just close enough that she could see them, hear them, smell them, but not reach them. Not protect them, not save them. Who does that? What kind of person looks at a mother dog and her babies and decides their lives are worth so little? I felt this heat inside me, this anger that pushed hard against the cold. I cut the mother loose with my pocket knife, and the moment she was free, she didn't run. She didn't even hesitate. She went straight to the box, nudging her nose against the puppies, crying softly, trying to warm them, trying to wake them up. I picked the puppies up, both fit into my hands, and tucked them inside my jacket against my chest. They were so cold, so heartbreakingly cold. I opened the truck and the mother climbed in without needing to be coaxed. She climbed in like she'd been waiting for someone, anyone, to finally choose kindness. And that's how the three of them ended up in the back seat of my truck, huddled together, while I turned the heat up as high as it would go and searched desperately for the nearest vet clinic. 35 miles in a blizzard, with lives depending on me navigating a road I could barely see. I don't think I've prayed much in my life. But driving through that storm, checking the rear view mirror every few seconds, listening to the mother dog's soft whining as she tried to warm her babies, yeah, I prayed. The storm didn't let up. If anything, it grew meaner, like it somehow knew I was carrying 3 lives that were balancing on a thread, and decided to test how much a human soul could take before it broke. The road was almost invisible, just a thin suggestion of darkness beneath the snow. My headlights did nothing except remind me how much the world had disappeared, but I kept driving. I had to. Every few seconds I'd glance in the rear view mirror. The mother dog, this beautiful, exhausted creature, was curled around her puppies, her body shaking but her eyes locked on mine, as if begging me silently not to stop, not to give up. And I won't lie to you, there were moments where I wasn't sure I could keep the truck on the road. The wheels slid more times than I want to remember. The wind pushed against us like it wanted to shove us off into the void, but those eyes, her eyes, kept me going. I talked to them. Not because they could understand the words, but because sometimes you speak just so the silence doesn't swallow you whole. Hang in there. I kept saying, we're gonna get you warm. You're gonna be okay. Just a little longer. My breath fogged the windshield even though the heater was blasting, and every time the tires slipped, my heart stopped for half a beat. Because if that truck slid into a ditch, that would be it. No rescue. No vet, no chance. About 10 miles in, I lost the road completely. There was just white, endless, disorienting white. I had to slow to nearly a crawl, but slowing felt dangerous too. Too slow, and the truck might lose traction, or worse, the engine might struggle in the cold. There's a kind of fear that doesn't shout, it doesn't panic. It just sits heavy in your chest like wet cement. That's what it felt like, but then, in the middle of that storm, something strange happened. The puppies, nestled inside my jacket, shifted, just a tiny movement. I felt a faint warmth against my ribs, so faint it could have been my imagination, but I held onto it like it was a lifeline, a sign that maybe I wasn't too late. About 15 minutes later, the mother dog let out this soft, low sound. Not a cry, not a bark, something deeper, the kind of sound that comes from a place beyond words, a mother's fear, a mother's love, a mother's helplessness. It went straight through me, and in that moment, a part of me changed. I don't know how to explain it, but sometimes life opens a door inside you that you didn't even know was there. And once it opens, you can't close it again. We crawled along the highway like a ship lost at sea, and then, like some small mercy from the universe, I saw a faint glow through the storm, a single light. Then another, and suddenly A sign, faded half, covered in snow, but readable enough. Pine Ridge Veterinary Clinic, 8 miles. 8 miles. It felt like hope, but storms don't care about hope. They don't care about timing or mercy. They just keep going, and those last 8 miles. They were the longest of my life. At one point, a gust of wind hit so hard it almost shoved the truck sideways off the road. I gripped the wheel, muscles locked, breath held, fighting for control. The puppies stirred again, barely. A flicker, a whisper of life. I pushed forward. When I finally pulled into the gravel lot of the clinic, it didn't even look open. The lights were dim, the parking lot was empty, and the storm had buried most of the building's front steps. For a moment, a cold fear swept through me that maybe it was closed, maybe no one was inside, maybe all this fighting through the storm had been for nothing. But then, through the swirling snow, I saw movement behind the frosted glass door. A woman, mid-50s maybe, gray hair pulled back, wearing scrubs and a tired expression that told me she'd probably been working since dawn. She looked surprised to see anyone, let alone a man carrying 2 half-frozen puppies inside his jacket, with a trembling mother following behind. The second she saw the puppies, her whole demeanor shifted. She opened the door wider and motioned us in quickly, like she understood the urgency without me needing to say a word. The warmth inside the clinic hit me like a wave. The mother dog collapsed onto the floor next to me, breathing hard, exhausted. I gently peeled the puppies from inside my jacket. They were still shivering, but at least they were moving. The vet took one look at them, and her eyes softened, not with pity, but with determination. The kind of determination people get when they know someone else's life depends on them. She whisked the puppies into a back room, calling for a tech to prepare warm fluids, heat pads, oxygen, everything they had. I stayed with the mother, stroking her fur as she lay on the floor, her eyes tracking every sound coming from the room where her babies had been taken. "You did good," I whispered. "You held on. You kept them alive." She nudged her head into my hand like she understood. Or maybe she just needed warmth. Maybe we both did. Minutes passed like hours. The storm hammered against the windows, and then finally the vet emerged. Her face gave nothing away at first. Professionals learn that skill over time, the ability to keep emotion off their face until they're ready to speak. She walked toward me slowly, crouched beside the mother, and spoke quietly. "They're very cold," she said. "We're warming them carefully. Too fast, and it could shock their system, but they're responding, weak, but responding." I felt something inside my chest loosen. A tension I hadn't even realized was holding me together started to unravel. I nodded, unable to say anything for a moment, and I asked, gesturing to the mother. "She's underweight, dehydrated, exhausted, but she's strong, very strong." She looked at the dog with a kind of admiration. She must have stayed awake as long as she could to keep them alive. I swallowed, feeling that familiar burn behind my eyes. I looked down at this dog, this fighter, this mother, and she looked back up at me with the same eyes I saw on the side of the road. Only now there was something new in them: safety, relief, maybe trust. The vet asked me if I knew what had happened to them. I told her what I'd found: the rope, the box, the storm. She listened quietly, jaw tightening slightly, not with anger, but with a tired kind of sadness, the kind that comes from seeing too many cases like this. "Some people," she murmured, "some people just don't deserve animals." She stood and placed a hand on my shoulder. "They're alive because of you," she said. "If you hadn't found them when you did, they wouldn't have made it another hour." I didn't know what to say. I don't think I needed to say anything. The storm raged outside. But inside that small clinic, 3 lives were fighting their way back. And for the first time since finding them, I felt a quiet warmth spreading through me that had nothing to do with the heater. something deeper, something human, something hopeful. The storm kept roaring outside, but in that small clinic room, everything felt strangely still. The kind of stillness that happens after you've spent hours fighting for something, pushing through fear and exhaustion, and then suddenly you hit a moment where you can finally breathe, just a little. I sat on the cold tile floor next to the mother dog, leaning against the wall, my jacket still half open from where the puppies had been tucked inside. The warmth in the room seeped slowly into my bones, and for the first time since I found them, I realized how drained I was. Not just physically, but emotionally. Saving a life takes something out of you. Saving three, it pulls at places you didn't even know were fragile. The mother dog lay with her head resting on my knee, her breathing steady now, softer. Every few minutes, she'd lift her head to look toward the door where her puppies had been taken, her eyes searching, waiting. It struck me how strong she was despite everything she had gone through. For her, nothing mattered except those two tiny lives fighting for warmth in the next room. She didn't care about the storm, or the cold, or the pain in her own body. Her entire world existed in the space between her and that door. After a while, the vet came back, her hands tucked into the pockets of her scrubs, her expression more relaxed this time. She lowered herself onto a stool across from me and gave the mother dog a reassuring smile before speaking. "They're warming up," she said, slowly, "but they're stable. We're monitoring their temperature and oxygen. They're fighters." I felt my shoulders drop as a breath I didn't know I was holding finally escaped. "Thank God." I whispered, and I meant it. The vet leaned back, studying me the way people sometimes study someone who has walked through something heavy. "You look like you've been through a war zone," she said, half smiling. I let out a small laugh, quiet, tired, feels like it. I said, "Found them tied to a tree. Someone left them there, in this storm." Her eyes hardened, not with anger exactly, but with a kind of weary disappointment. "People like that. It's like something inside them has turned off," she said. "No empathy, no responsibility, no heart." She shook her head. "But then there are people like you." She motioned to the mother dog leaning against me. "People who stop, people who choose to care." I didn't really know how to respond to that. I've never been good at taking compliments, but I looked at the mother dog, at the way she nudged closer to me, trusting me completely, and I felt something quiet settle in my chest. Maybe the vet was right. Not about me being a hero or anything like that, but about the simple truth that sometimes the smallest decision, the smallest moment of compassion, can change the entire course of another life. After some time, the vet invited me into the back room to see the puppies. They were lying on soft blankets layered over heating pads, each one wrapped in a tiny towel, their little bodies trembling less and less with every passing minute. Their fur was still damp, their eyes still closed, but there was life in them, real, undeniable life. One of the puppies gave the faintest wiggle, stretching its tiny legs as if trying to reach for something familiar. The mother dog barked softly when she saw them, a sound filled with relief, desperation, and love all mixed together. The vet brought her closer, carefully guiding her so she wouldn't overexert herself. The puppies reacted immediately, their tiny heads turning instinctively toward her, and in that moment, seeing a mother reunited with her babies, seeing them respond to her scent even in their weakened state, I felt something shift inside me. Something deep, a reminder of how fragile life can be, and how powerful love is, even from an animal who had no reason left to trust the world. The vet gave them time together while she checked their vitals again. She spoke quietly as she worked. "They'll need monitoring for the next 24 hours. Hydration, warmth, and a slow recovery. But the fact that they're responding this well, it's a good sign." I watched the mother dog curl around her puppies, pulling them close with the last bit of strength she had, even half Starved and exhausted, her instinct was to protect, to love, to give whatever she had left. And somehow, in this place, in this moment, I realized she wasn't the only one healing. Hours passed without me noticing. The storm eventually weakened, the wind quieting into a soft whistle against the clinic windows. The world outside was still cold, still dangerous, but in here, there was light, warmth, hope. The vet brought me coffee, and we talked for a while about animals, about people, about how some wounds don't show on skin, but change you all the same. At one point, she asked if I planned to leave the dogs once they recovered. It wasn't judgmental, just curious. I stared at the mother dog, her head resting gently near her puppies, her breathing steady and safe now. And I knew the answer before she even finished the question. No. I said quietly, I'm not leaving them, not after this. The vet smiled, that soft kind of smile people give when something good has just been set right in the world. Then they're lucky, she said, but I didn't feel like they were the lucky ones. If anything, I felt like the one who had been given something. An unexpected reminder of why we're here, what matters, and how even the smallest act can ripple outward into something bigger than we ever imagined. Night settled deeper outside, but inside that clinic, life continued in gentle breaths and small movements. The puppies slept, tiny chests rising and falling. The mother dog watched over them with eyes half closed, peaceful for the first time in who knows how long. And I sat beside them, feeling strangely whole, more grounded, more connected to something real. And as I watched them breathe, I realized something. Sometimes you think you're saving them, but the truth is, they save you right back. Morning light came slowly, like it wasn't sure if the world was ready for it yet. The storm had finally exhausted itself sometime during the night, and by dawn, the landscape outside the clinic looked like another planet. Quiet, white, untouched except for the soft, ghostly trails of wind carving through the snow. I'd been awake for hours, not because I couldn't sleep, but because I didn't want to miss a single moment. Every few minutes, I found myself glancing toward the small heating station where the puppies lay safely, their mother curled protectively around them. And every time, without fail, the sight of them brought this gentle weight to my chest. Something warm, something grounding. The vet walked in just after sunrise, her hair tied back hastily, eyes carrying the soft exhaustion of someone who had cared through the night. She offered me a tired smile. "You're still here," she said, though she already knew the answer. "Yeah," I murmured. Didn't feel right to leave. She checked the puppies again, lifting each one with careful, practiced hands. Their movements were stronger now, tiny paws twitching, soft squeaks breaking the silence, life insisting on happening. The mother dog lifted her head each time the vet touched them, watching but no longer fearful. She trusted the hands that were helping her babies, and strangely, she trusted me too. They're recovering beautifully. The vet said, "A few more hours and they'll be out of the danger zone." I let out a breath. A real one, full, deep, satisfying, good. I whispered, "That's really good." The vet stood beside me for a moment, both of us watching the small family breathe and shift in the warm glow of the heat lamps. Then she said something that caught me off guard. "You know, animals remember." She looked at me gently, not always faces, not always details, but the feeling, the moment someone chose them, saved them, loved them. She's never going to forget this. I didn't respond right away. Not because I didn't believe her, but because the truth of it hit deeper than I expected. My mind drifted backwards, years, decades, to moments in my own life when someone had reached out, helped me, offered kindness when I didn't even know how to ask. Life, changing moments, and suddenly, standing there in that small clinic, watching this mother dog lick her puppies' heads with slow, exhausted affection. I realized this wasn't just about saving them. It was about remembering something inside myself that I'd been too busy, too tired, too human to notice lately. Around mid-morning, the vet gave the puppies clearance to leave. She provided blankets, medicine, instructions, everything we needed. And then came the question, not from her this time, but from inside me, where do they go now? There were options, of course, shelters, foster homes, rescue groups, places full of kind people doing incredible work. But the moment I pictured driving away and leaving them behind, something twisted in my chest in a way I couldn't ignore. I knelt beside the mother dog and gently ran my hand along her neck, feeling the new softness where a rope had once cut into her skin. She looked up at me with eyes that were tired but steady, grateful but cautious, hopeful but still healing, and in that moment the decision was clear. "You're coming with me," I whispered. She didn't understand the words, not literally. But she understood the voice, the tone, the promise. Her body relaxed against my hand, and for the first time since I found her, she closed her eyes fully, without fear. Carrying the puppies out to the truck felt different now. No urgency, no panic, just a quiet sense of rightness. I laid them gently on a soft blanket the vet had given me, the heater humming steadily in the cab. The mother climbed in after them, curling her body around theirs in one smooth, instinctive motion. Before I started the engine, I just sat there for a moment. Snow glittered on the dashboard, my hands rested loosely on the wheel, and the sound of 3 soft breaths filled the space around me. A strange peace settled over the truck, like I'd stepped into a moment I wasn't supposed to rush. Driving back through Wyoming was different this time. The storm was gone, the world was bright, the roads were still rough, patches of ice catching the sunlight, but there was no fear, no urgency. The puppies slept, warm and safe. The mother kept her eyes on the road ahead, as if she were memorizing every mile that led her further and further away from the life she'd been abandoned to. I talked to them as I drove, not full conversations, just soft, low words. Comforting words, the kind you offer someone who can't respond verbally but understands every syllable in their own way. And the more I spoke, the more the heaviness I'd been carrying for months, years maybe, began to lift in small, steady pieces. When we reached my property, the sun was beginning to set again, painting the sky in those impossible colors that make you stop, even if just for a moment, and remember how big the world is. I carried the puppies inside first, then helped the mother dog step into a home that was warm, quiet, and safe. She sniffed cautiously at everything, furniture, blankets, the wooden floor, but stayed close to me the whole time. And as the puppies curled up in their new space, their mother resting beside them, I realized something with absolute clarity. I hadn't just brought them home. They had brought something home inside me too. That night, sitting on the floor beside them, listening to their small breaths and soft movements, I felt a kind of peace I hadn't felt in a long time. Not the dramatic movie kind, not the kind that arrives with fireworks or revelations. Just quiet, steady, honest peace. Life is strange like that. You set out on a simple drive, just another day, just another stretch of road. And suddenly you're standing in a snowstorm, holding 2 freezing puppies against your chest, while a mother dog looks at you like you're the only lifeline she has left. And then you realize that maybe, just maybe, you needed saving too.